You're listening to Sacramento's First Lady, Lady Charmaine, on 97.5 KDEE.
You're back inside the Girls Club with Lady Charmaine and girlfriends. And right now I got my girl Dearoki Asami and also Shari Wilson. And on the line, we actually have Officer Darnell Miller. He is an African-American police officer in Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you so much, Darnell, for joining us on the show.
How you doing?
Good. Now, I wanted to hear from you. I'm so glad you were tuning in live online. If you are actually listening right now, you can actually go online and view us live in the studio. Just go to my Charmaine Bassett page, because that's where we are right now. But right now, Darnell, for you being a police officer, we know that everything right now is so heightened between the police officers and the African-American community. And I want to hear through the eyes of an officer, when you go to pull someone over, what goes through your mind? And if there's any fears that go through your mind regarding who you're pulling over and what you can possibly confront when you approach that car?
Well, I think there's no such thing as like a routine stop. So all stops are different. Have to have good cause, probable cause to pull somebody over, for one. But for two, when you're doing a traffic stop, you have to make sure that you're using proper tactics. I think a lot of what we're seeing right now are people who are misinformed in reference to not getting enough information out of the police academy on proper tactics, verbal judo, things of that nature. So if you're already scared while doing that traffic stop, then of course you're going to act accordingly. I think that when most officers do traffic stops, you never know exactly what's going to happen. You just kind of engage with the person, try to make contact with them, let them know why you pulled them over. A lot of times, officers aren't letting people know why they pull them over, and that's what becomes a bigger problem. And so I have always, when I got out of the police academy, I was always taught, don't be a traffic Nazi. So basically, don't go out there just trying to pull people over just because you want to write tickets, but just trying to make sure that if you do pull people over, you have probable cause. And so the majority of the time when you engage with people, you just let them know exactly why you're pulling them over, and just assess the situation and make sure that that you're not running up on harm's way, because you just never know who. We're more of at a disadvantage when we do traffic stops. So
now, as an officer, Darnell, and among your code blue, have you seen any mistreatment of African Americans but just didn't say anything about it?
Well, let me see. I can say that I've seen a couple of things, or have in certain instances where I've seen certain things, and I will speak up on it, because I think that if you don't speak up on certain things that you see, it makes you culpable. And I think once you allow a supervisor, somebody to know of the things that you see, it's kind of on them to handle that. As long as I just get that off my conscience to say something about it, because I feel like I'm try to be more of a peace officer more instead of a police. Police are starting to catch a bad name. I think peace officers are needed. And so if I see certain things, of course, I'm going to speak to it. That's one of the things that they ask you when you're going through the interview processes. How often, if you see certain things, what would you say? So I engage in officers. If you got a problem with your brother in blue, you speak to them first, and if it escalates, then you take it to the next level. So that's the best protocol you have.
So in light of everything that's going on in our nation, and seeing what your fellow officers, what happened with, of course, Alton Sterling and also Philando Castillo, as an officer, how did that make you feel when you saw these shootings?
Frustrated. Frustrated. I was irate. I just think that a lot of times, in reference to what you see on social media, you have to be very careful. But I just think, based on the footage and based on my knowledge and experience of the things that I saw, I just feel like it was improper tactics used to some degree. Like I said before, they're still getting more information. But what I saw, I would say that proper tactics weren't used. Let's just say it like that. It made me angry. I have a 24-year-old son that lives there in Sac, and I've always talked to him about having, if he ever comes in contact with police, be polite and do what he has to do as far as get home safely. And I just felt I was more angered because now, when you have more of a expedited training process now is kind of reflection upon the departments by the training tactics and the lack thereof. So I was angry, and for doing this for such a long time, I realized that coming from a reputable police academy, I was only a couple of times I've even pulled out my gun. Wow. I think that verbal judo is missing a lot of instances where people don't know how to de-escalate a situation. And so instead of talking, you reach for a gun, which is to many degrees wrong, because you got to fight fire with fire. And if somebody's talking to you and you're asking them to get something for you, but you're nervous already and got a quick trigger finger, that can be a problem. So yeah, I was angry.
So among your fellow officers, what is the feeling like right now, especially in light of what took place on yesterday with the killings of 3 officers?
Yeah, that's sad. I put on my page the other day. I said that's not the answer. You got a lot of people right now that are applauding that type of stuff, which I feel is wrong. But I feel bad for those officers. A lot of times you can't get caught up in what you see on TV, though. There's a lot of propaganda out there, and they're making things to be what they're really not. And so I don't really watch much TV because that's why I call it, television, tell a lie through vision. A lot of people getting caught up in what they see on social media and what they see on TV, and you got to understand who's controlling the narrative. You got to be very, very careful of the information that they're putting out there. It's kind of almost like, studying the Bible. You got to study it, show yourself approved. And so a lot of this information is going out. You got to study it, do your due diligence, and make sure you're coming up with a proper assessment of a situation. Because just acting out, just because you might think that it's somebody who Black Lives Matter or whatever it may be, you might be diminishing a way to try to find a solution overall.
Now, Darnell, last question. As an African-American police officer, what would you say to the African-American community that's actually hurting right now because we are feeling so much injustice of what's going on? What would you say?
Well, I know it's an old cliche, but I just say pray about it. I mean, that's what I do. That's all I can do. At the end of the day, we're forced in a position where all we can do is the best position to have is not just hands up, but hands together and praying. That's what I would encourage them to do. It's a lot of us, the good officers out here that want to keep peace. One of the questions I was asked when I was first interviewed was, why should we hire you? And I told them, I have the ability to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community. I said, because it's much needed. Unfortunately, I wanted to work in Sacramento, but it didn't work out like that yet. But anyway, that was a plug. Anyway, no, I just tell them, everybody to be encouraged, though. There's a lot of good out here in the streets. Right now, like my dad always says, when you pull back the onion, you get a chance to see what's really good underneath everything else. So I just ask everybody just kind of keep praying, stay humble about it. This battle's not ours, it's the Lord's.
Amen.
And, everything else is going to fall into place.
Well, we're going to believe God that He will lead you here and open up a door for you to come to dear old Sacramento.
Hey, you know what? Y'all need to talk about that in town meetings now. Y'all need to get some more brothers out there.
If I ask him a question?
Go ahead, Dee.
Hey, I had a quick question.
Okay.
When things that happen in the media happen, these shootings happen, Mike, if something like that was happening at work, not in your circumstance, not in law enforcement, but in IT circumstance, we have a meeting about it. We do some training about it, and we talk about how not to have it happen again. Is that the kind of discussions that happen in the police department when these tragedies happen? They go back and say, okay, let's talk about this and figure out how not to have this happen. Do they enforce training? Do they do diversity? I'm just curious.
Well, it's like I said before. Everybody, it's nothing set in stone, so you really don't have the exact answer. But training is necessary. Like I said before, when I see certain things, I've always stated in our roll calls and things of that nature that training is necessary. It's mandatory, retraining. And a lot of these guys just weren't properly trained. Like I went through a 6-month police academy. A lot of these guys are going through 12-week academies now. And, I think that you have to let these people know that this is a career, not a job.
All right.
12 weeks.
compared to 6 months. And you said
Wow.
you've only pulled your gun out just a few times. You
Man,
know,
because look, you have to know how to talk to these people. I'm real tight. It's like, my thing is I know how to talk to people. I was trained that way. And shout out to the DeKalb County Police Department and in Atlanta. But my thing is, you just have to know how to talk to people. And that's where a lot of people are lacking right now. No verbal judo skills and tactics are just poor.
And I'm noticing
And
that a
that's
lot of
tough.
these guys are only been on the force for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
Who's been making
see?
a lot of these mistakes.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
they need to take it back to the drawing board. That's for sure. And
I
a lot
agree.
of these, like I said, right is right, wrong is wrong.
thank you.
And my thing is, when you take an oath, to protect and serve, you need to do that with due diligence. You need to be more professional. You can't be scared doing this job. That's why we call superheroes every now and then. But it's a lot to love about us, peace officers. Peace officers.
Well, we
I
appreciate
know that's
you.
right. Well, Darnell, then you need to be here in Sacramento with us.
Hey, I'm trying to get there.
So if anybody can pull some strings, bring my
Oh,
brother
to talk
Darnell
to the
Miller
mayor.
back to Sacramento. Again, thank you so much for calling in on the show. I
Thank you,
really
Darnell.
appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate y'all. Y'all take it easy.
You
You
too.
too.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Now, those are the kind of police officers we need here in our city. Among
Peace
our people.
officers.
There you
He
go.
made it very clear. Peace officer.
With 6 months worth
Yeah.
of training, who knows exactly what he's doing, and only drew his gun a couple of times because he know how to use verbal judo.
And he
Right.
said, I wanted to be an officer to bridge the gap.
And sometimes
To bridge
people have
the
to
gap.
go back to why you became
Yeah.
an officer.
You know what
Yes.
impressed me, Lady Charmaine, is the Richmond Police Office, Richmond Police Department. Did you see that? Where they haven't shot anyone in over some crazy amount of years, 20 to 30 years.
And I'm from
Wow.
Richmond.
Something
Praise
like that.
God.
So there's an article that, and they had the community behind. I seen a picture that the community behind them. No one's died by the hands of police in so many years, and I commend them for that. It's something that we should look into. Maybe
They
have them
said
on as a
Atlanta.
guest. and
They
see
said
what
Atlanta's the same way.
Yeah,
They said
like,
they
what
have
are-
a
what are
very
they
You
good
said
relationship.
Atlanta?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
where
Darnell's
he's
in
at.
Atlanta. That's a blessing.
T.I. said that he had an interview. He said Atlanta police officers are excellent, very good officers, and they don't have these type of issues.
And Richmond has some of is on the crime list for the nation.
Yeah.
But they're not even getting killed by officers.
And see, that's great. Well, ladies, I want to thank you so much for joining me on the show today. You're watching a Rich Girl Dreams production.